All right, we're on notes 1.4b, and this is about density. So you continue with your packet that you took notes in for 1.4a. So what is density? Density is a measure of how close the atoms are to one another. So this picture shows low density to high density. So this is low density because the atoms are not very close to each other. And as you move up, the atoms get closer and closer together, so the density is getting higher. This is high density, atoms very close to each other, low density, atoms farther apart. So if you combine substances that have different densities, then the less dense substance will float, and the more dense substance will sink. All right, so let's look at this example with a cork. And a rock. So we've got water here, and we've got a rock in it and a cork in it. So the cork is floating on top of the water, so that means that it is less dense than the water. And then the rock is sinking, so it's more dense than the water. And if we could look at what the atoms or particles look like, we would see something like this. So the cork has particles that are pretty far apart, and then the rock would have the atoms or particles being pretty close together because this is less dense, more dense. So how does temperature affect density? Well, increased temperature means greater energy of motion, right? We just talked about with states of matter that solids, particles move slowly, and gases, particles move fastly. Sorry, that's not a word. Move more fast. So increased temperature means greater energy of motion, so most substances expand when heated. So as you add heat to different things, they expand. Now, water is actually weird and unique because ice floats on water, right? So ice is actually less dense than water. That's why it floats. But as you add heat to water and it turns into steam, it floats into the sky or up into the air, and it's less dense. So usually water is unique. I'm pretty sure with all other substances, as you add heat, they become less and less dense. But water's just unique in that way. All right, so in summary, density is a measure of how close atoms are to one another. Less dense objects will float, more dense objects will sink, and then increasing temperature increases density. So go ahead and move on to your density lab.